Good morning, everybody. My boss, Alan Davidson, does send his regrets. There aren't too many things to which the Free State Foundation appearance would end up in second place, but I think dealing with China is one of them. So I do send his regrets. I think it would be instructive to briefly summarize how we got here, at least from the perspective of a web-based apps company from Silicon Valley. And for that, I go back to the year 2005. It was a pivotal year in this debate. The Commission had decided the Madison River Whitt blocking case the previous year under the pre-existing policy regime under which broadband was still seen as a telecom service. And there was near universal applause in terms of the outcome there. But in June 2005 came, of course, the Supreme Court's Brand X decision. As Justice Scalia put it in his dissent, it was a wonderful illustration of how an expert agency can turn statutory constraints into bureaucratic discretion. A few months later, in the wireline broadband order, of course, the Commission then eliminated the statutory and common law bases for common carriage as applied to wireline broadband, so the ISP open access regime effectively was ended. The Commission did issue the Internet Policy Statement at that same time, but they took, in our mind, a consumer-centric only approach, ignoring the potential for discrimination by broadband providers against the rest of the Internet of unaffiliated content and apps providers. And so by the end of the summer, we had enforceable safeguards that had now become unenforceable and incomplete principles. Soon after that, we started hearing some ominous rumblings from our broadband provider friends. Ed Whittaker, then of SBC, now the head of Government Motors, said he would not let Google or others use his pipes for free. A few months later, John Thorne at Verizon, and I think in an unfortunate remark at a lunch that was later disowned, I think, by Verizon, said that Google is enjoying a free lunch that should, by any rational account, be the lunch of the facilities providers. We also heard similar statements from Bell South, France Telecom, Deutsche Telekom. And so at that point, what was a group of Silicon Valley companies and public interest groups to do? The natural course for us was you go to Congress. Or to paraphrase Janis Joplin, network neutrality is just another name for nothing left to lose. So in early 2006, there was a cable franchise bill that was, of course, pending in Congress, actually moving in Congress, and we decided to try to use that as the platform for seeking an amendment that would require non-discrimination. So a policy dispute became, at that point, largely a political one, and then, to my mind, unfortunately, a partisan one, and the battle lines then were drawn. So we fast forward now to 2010. We now have a president who ran on a broadband openness agenda as part of his high-tech platform, and we now have an FCC chairman who wants to put that into place. In my view, a large part of what separates the broadband providers from the internet content apps community is a difference in mindsets. For example, where we see the desirability of protecting the smart edges, they fear being consigned to dumb cores. Where we see the prevalence and the power of end-to-end, they see all of the many exceptions. Where they see, where they see undifferentiated ecosystems, we see network layers, or as Randy likes to call it, techno-functional analysis. The challenge is whether anyone's minds actually can be changed in this debate, or at least have a reasoned debate despite these differences. So in that spirit, we reached out to Comcast behind the scenes as the BitTorrent situation was first coming to light back in 2007. Rather than assume the worst in an adversarial posture at the Commission, we actually decided to talk. Our engineering-level discussions led us to conclude that Comcast was engaging in rather inelegant network management and not anti-competitive blocking. So we refrained from piling on at the FCC. In that same spirit, our recent work with Verizon has been the culmination of an extended exercise in trying to understand each other and find some common ground in this area. From Google's perspective, especially given where we started from, we've achieved some success here. We've been able to find some fundamental things to agree on, like maintaining open and robust access to the internet, and preserving incentives for all players in the ecosystem to invest, and ensuring transparency for users, and finding a tailored role for government to deal with bad practices that harm users and competition. At the same time, we've also respectfully disagreed about some of the central questions around broadband openness, like whether a non-discrimination rule is even necessary and what it should look like, or whether wireless networks should be included in the mix, and even whether the FCC has the authority to do anything at all. Where we go from here remains to be seen, but it's my own belief that stakeholders in the Internet's future need to keep talking with each other and not at each other. So to finally address the title of this panel, the Google comments we submitted in the proceedings speak for themselves in terms of the structural, market, and technical reasons we see for the FCC to use its oversight authority to preserve and promote broadband openness, and I look forward to getting into some of those questions and arguments stemming from the debate as part of this panel. Thanks.
Rick.